Okay, in this final video, this is step 4, part 2, we're going to add one last little feature, and that's going to be we're going to store the information into a file. Now, I could continue to build this program forever, adding a whole bunch of other features, but I think this is a nice place to kind of move on to our next kind of example as we build. So I hope this has been helpful, and I hope by the end you have something functional like me. All right, so let's do this. So to do this, what we need to do is, in order to save information to a file, there's 2 steps. The first thing I have to do is I have to actually create a file association to a file in the computer, and I use that using a built-in function called open. So I'm going to open, and I'm just going to call my file data.txt. Now, if the file doesn't exist, the program will actually just create it, and if the file does exist, it will just access it. Now, I did this earlier, as you can see the file there. So I'm going to actually just go and I'm going to actually delete this file just for the sake of this. There we go. And the second parameter needs to be what you're going to do with the file. There's 3 that you can typically use. There's R for read, there's W for write, and there's A for append. So I'm going to use a write. And so what this means is it's going to write the data. What's important to note is W will wipe out any old data. So the first thing with a file we do is we open it, we associate it with the name of a file, and then we tell it what we want to do with it. The last thing we do is we have to close the file. So basically I want to do this at the very end of my program after I've shut it down. So it's going to be actually the one thing after this root.main loop. And we're going to say file.close. So let's just save this and let's just take a look at what happens. So we're going to clear this. So you see right away that data there got created. See that text file that popped up? And I close it. It's good. So what do I want to do? Well, essentially, every time I calculate a new calculation, I want to store that into this text file here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the file name, and I can print to it. So let's scroll up here and let's figure out where do we actually calculate the volume. Well, we calculate the volume in a couple places. We calculate the volume right here. So I have a couple options. I could copy to a file in the function, or I could calculate to a file, or write it to a file when I do the output. I'm actually going to write it to a file when I do the output. And the reason why is because right now this is a nice standalone function that just calculates the volume of the cylinder. Really simple. Other people could use it. Great. If I start doing things with files in here and then someone else uses the function, that's going to be a problem. So let's come down here, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to say file.print, and what am I going to print to it? Let's just print the result to it, and let's just see what happens. So let's save this. Let's give it a run. Let's put 3 and 4 and hit calculate, and I get this problem. Well, it's not print, is it? What am I actually doing to the file? What I'm actually doing is I'm writing to the file. So let's try this again and see what happens. So if I run this, I'm going to put something like 3 and 4 and I hit calculate. Perfect. I put 5 and 6 and I hit calculate. Spectacular. So let's close this now. Let's go look at our file. There it is. And that's all there is to it. Now, last thing I'm just going to do here is watch this. If I run this, and I put in like 103, and I hit calculate and close, and I come in here, all the old data has disappeared. So just something to be aware of is that depending on what you're doing, you can tell the program to either continually add to the file or to overwrite it. If I want to continually add to the file, what I do is when I create this association, I use an A. A will append the data. So anything else that's already in there just keeps adding. So let's save this. Let's give it a run. And if I say 1 and 2, I hit calculate. 4 and 2, and I hit calculate. I close. And notice it has 3 pieces of information there. The one from the first time I ran it, and then these other ones. Now, here's the thing. This is about formatting. This is a beautiful way to display it on our program. Probably not a great way to put it in the file. When you set files, depending on what you want it for, maybe this is what you want it for. But you can also think of files as just a place to store data, and if you have some sort of logic to how it's stored, then you can just minimize the information. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to strip out everything else except for the values. And then I know that the file is always going to be read radius, height, volume, radius, height, volume, radius, height, volume. And so what I can do now is I can go here, and where this, right here where I wrote, I'm not going to write result. I'm going to write radius, sorry, R. Oh, I'm going to write strr, file.write, strh, file.write, str, volume. And so I'm just going to write the three values to the file with no other context. Again, this isn't better or worse. It depends on what I'm doing with it. But it's important to realize that you need to think in advance how the data is going to be represented in your file. That can have a huge impact. So before I run this, I'm actually going to come down here to this A. I'm going to make it a W again to write. So get rid of that comment. Let's save this. Let's run it. Here it is, and I say 1, 2, calculate, 3, 4, calculate, 5, 6, calculate. Let's close. It's not quite right because, well, what's happening, I want each one on a new line. And when I write to a file, it just kind of writes it in. It doesn't put the new line. So let's come back to our program again. And let's put here, where's the right? I'll find it. There it is. Let's put a plus \n plus \n plus \n. So let's save this. Let's give it a run. I'm going to say 1, 2, calculate. 3, 4, calculate. Oh, I hit the high contrast button. Calculate. 5, 6, calculate. Now we're going to close this. Let's check out our data. And there it is. Again, this isn't any better or worse because I don't know the situation that I'm working with. If someone wanted something nice to print out, then the original way I was storing it to the file would be much better. But if I just want the raw data, this is a lot better. But what I have to know in advance is I have to know that it's read radius, height, volume. Radius, height, volume. If I don't know this, then it's no use to me. So all this to say, if you're using files, you have to think in advance how the information is going to be stored in the file. So if you've made it all the way through this, well done. This is a lot of stuff for a beginning programmer, and I'm sure you have some questions. So don't hesitate to ask, and good luck with your programming. Have a great day.